5 years ago, Cyberpunk 2077 promised us the future, and instead gave us a cautionary tale. But after patches, expansions, and a second chance, was Night City worth the wait? Or did the dream truly flatline? Released in December 2020, Cyberpunk 2077 was one of the most anticipated video games of the modern era, with years of hype and E3 reveal that practically broke the internet.
You're breathtaking! You're all breathtaking!
And the credibility of CD Projekt Red riding high after The Witcher 3. Expectations were at a fever pitch. Then the game launched, and the world collectively exhaled a disappointed, glitch-filled sigh. But here we are, 5 years later. Cyberpunk 2077 is no longer a meme, a disaster, or a refund waiting to happen. It's a rare story of redemption in an industry that often burns bright and fizzles out. What went wrong, what went right, and most importantly, was it all worth it? This is the full retrospective of Cyberpunk 2077, 5 years later. If there's one area where Cyberpunk 2077 has seen the most transformation since launch, it's the gameplay. In 2020, it was a patchwork of promising systems duct taped together by broken AI and half-finished mechanics. But 5 years later, thanks to major updates, especially the 2.0 overhaul, Cyberpunk finally plays the game that we were promised. And honestly, it slaps. The first-person shooting in Cyberpunk has come a long way, from a rock-hard piece of stale old bread to a fast, fluid system that can stand toe-to-toe with proper shooters. At launch, the gunplay was serviceable at best and borderline broken at worst. Aiming felt weightless, recoil was inconsistent, and enemies soaked up bullets like sponges wrapped in Kevlar. It lacked that snap and feel that even mid-tier FPS games have. With years of updates, this has all changed. Enemies now react to gunfire in a satisfying way. They stagger, flinch, duck behind cover, and even attempt flanking maneuvers. You no longer feel like you're unloading entire clips into NPCs who are just standing there waiting for their turn to fall over. Firefights are punchy, kinetic, and on high difficulties brutal. You can't just run and gun through everything without thinking, at least in the early stages of the game. You need to manage positioning, reload timing, and crowd control to survive. You earn your victories. Weapon variety is surprisingly deep and tailored to a range of combat styles. You've got three main archetypes: power weapons, which act like traditional ballistic firearms, high damage, high recoil, and capable of ricochet shots, which, shooting around corners with skill-based bouncing bullets, never stops being entertaining. But most of the time you won't even notice this. Tech weapons charge up shots that can pierce cover and even walls, perfect for ambushing enemies or clearing rooms without setting foot in them. But most people don't know that, so they'll just use them like a charge-up shotgun. Smart weapons use auto-tracking projectiles that lock onto enemies, allowing you to shoot around corners or for cover. It feels almost unfair until you're up against enemies who do the same to you. They're an awesome, unique style weapon that, helps those that aren't good at aiming, but are also fun to use because you don't really have to engage with the aiming part of a shooter, which is a weird thing to say. The tactile feedback of each gun has been redefined. Handguns kick back with power, shotguns sound like thunderclaps. There's a visceral crunch to each shot now that simply wasn't there before. It's not just about the guns though, it's how your build interacts with them. 2.0 reworked perk trees to focus on unique playstyles. The reflex tree enhances quick reloading, headshot bonuses, and precision shooting. The body tree lets you turn into a shotgun-toting tank who rips turrets out of the ground. The technical and intelligence trees provide support to tech and smart weapons, making them deadlier than ever. You can specialize in revolvers, hand cannons, SMGs, shotguns, rifles, you name it. Whether you want to channel your inner John Wick and dual pistol loadout or become a one-shot, one-kill sniper hitman, this system now supports that. There's even synergy between weapons and cyberwear. Activate a Santa Vista to slow time and headshot a room full of enemies before they blink. Use optical camo to perfectly ambush an enemy. Pair some smart pistols with tracking cyberwear for unmatched auto-aim efficiency. Gunplay isn't what it used to be. Combined with the diversity of weapons, meaningful builds, crafting and enhancing enemy behaviour, combat finally delivers the adrenaline and tactical depth that was missing at launch. 5 years later, Gunplay isn't just fixed, it's fantastic. It's what the shooting should have been all along. Melee in Cyberpunk always looked cool, but at launch it didn't feel great. Hit detection was a little off, animations were floaty, and enemies often just stood there like mannequins waiting to be sliced. For a game that promised visceral close quarters carnage, the melee system was pretty damn undercooked. Post the updates, it's better, a lot better. Blades now feel deadly, animations have more impact, and the addition of improved AI gives combat a more reactive rhythm. Parrying and dodging now matter, creating a fluid back and forth between you and your enemies. There's a weight behind your swing, especially with heavy attacks, and when timed well you can decimate entire rooms in seconds. If you invest in the reflex of body skill trees, you can turn V into a katana whirling or a blunt force demolition machine. Melee combat in Cyberpunk offers a solid range of weapon choices, each with their own combat style and flair. Katanas are fast and lethal, slicing through enemies with surgical precision. Machetes and cleavers hit hard but trade speed for power. Batons and crowbars are excellent for non-lethal takedowns, while two-handed clubs deal massive knockdown damage and crowd control at the cost of agility. But what really defines melee play in Cyberpunk is the arm upgrades. These aren't just cool gadgets, they're game changers. Gorilla arms, the go-to for blunt trauma fans, that monstrous cyber arms turn you into a street brawler with devastating power, perfect for tearing through armored enemies, knocking foes across rooms, or even punching down doors. When fully upgraded, gorilla arms can trigger finishing moves that feel ripped straight from a fighting game. But that's the thing. The only time I ever use the gorilla arms is when I'm doing the boxing quest. Like, actually, most of the time I then swap back to whatever my build is. So it's one of those things that gets installed to my Cyberwear every single playthrough solely for the one questline, and then gets removed straight after. Mantis Blade's perhaps the most iconic of the Cyberwear arsenal. Great for mobility, you can leap towards enemies with a punch attack, chain slashes and decapitate them. They're fast, stylish, and built for players who want to feel like a predator on the hunt. The monowire, on the other hand, is the most unique option. Monowire is a high tensile whip made of glowing filament. It's excellent for mid-range crowd control and works well with tech and Netrunner builds, as it can be charged to deal massive elemental or hacking-based damage. The monowire is less about raw power and more about versatility and timing. Each arm type caters to different fantasies. That said, melee still isn't perfect compared to gunplay or hacking. It lacks a bit of finesse. Enemies don't always react realistically to being stabbed in the throat, and that hit feedback can occasionally feel imprecise. Once you reach a high enough level and spec into the right perks, the whole system comes alive. Melee V is a force of nature, one-shotting enemies, triggering brutal slow-motion executions, and watching limbs fly while the remaining goons hesitate before charging you. Still an absolute vibe. Still my favourite way to play the game. Cyberpunk 2077 may not be the pure melee game, but it sure as hell knows how to make you feel like a cybernetic warrior when you close the distance. Netrunning is the one gameplay style in Cyberpunk 2077 that is arguably the most unique and, when played right, the most devastating. At launch, hacking was functional but shallow. Quick hacks existed, sure, but most players stuck to the basic functions of ping an enemy, maybe disable a camera or blind someone's optics before going in guns blazing. It felt more like a side gimmick than a true playstyle. The fantasy of being a futuristic digital assassin, someone who could manipulate systems and people alike, just wasn't really realised. Fast forward to now, and Netrunning is a full-blown power fantasy. With the right cyberdeck, mods and perks, you can clear an entire building without ever drawing a weapon. Chain malware between multiple enemies, fry cyberwear implants until smoke pours from the skulls, disable cameras, turrets, and even enemy cyberdecks before they have a chance to react. It's not just effective, it's stylish. The intelligence perk tree has been completely redesigned to support this playstyle. Perks now provide branching options to specialize your hacking approach. Want to be a stealthy puppeteer manipulating enemies into taking each other out? Done. Prefer to overload their optics, burn out their nervous system, and watch them wither away from a rooftop a block away? Go ahead, tune. There's a real sense of rhythm to high-level net running. You chain quick hacks together like combos, calculating upload times and RAM costs mid-combat. You learn to set up systems like traps, trigger environmental hazards, exploding machinery, or using enemy cyberware against them. Better decks increase your buffer size and upload speed, while mods tweak the effectiveness and spread of your hacks. Quick hacks themselves have expanded significantly beyond the basics like overheat and short circuit. You now have options like memory wire, cripple movement, system collapse, contagion, and cyberpsychosis, each with tactical uses. Want to make an enemy go berserk and kill their crew, or shut down a Netrunner before they upload a hack to you? The options are endless. And here's the best part. Net running is now viable at all difficulty levels. On very hard, where frontal assault is usually suicide, a skilled Netrunner can still dismantle entire squads with surgical precision. Boss fights become puzzles rather than slugfests. The right combos of hacks can neutralize even the toughest foes long before they get close. Net running also synergizes beautifully with stealth. A true ghost build lets you remain undetected, disabling enemies and systems and surgical precision. You're not fighting the system, you are the system. And when things go wrong, you've got the toolkit to adapt without resorting to force. 5 years on, net running isn't just a valid way to play. It's one of the most stylish and satisfying and creatively empowering systems in the entire game. It lets you break the rules of the world without ever breaking immersion. It finally delivers on that fantasy of being a true digital assassin in the age of Chrome and code. Stealth in Cyberpunk was one of the most undercooked systems in the game. Enemy AI was so bad you could run behind a crate mid-chase and the goons would just forget you existed. That's mostly fixed, in fact. Stealth now has depth equivalent to the standard. Let's not get carried away though. With updated detection mechanics, better enemy behavior, and now perks tied to quick movement, cloaking, and non-lethal takedowns, stealth is no longer janky, it's an actual playstyle. You can crouch sprint through a corporate penthouse, pinging cameras, silently dropping bodies, hacking turrets, and vanishing into the vents like a cybernetic Batman. Stealth will still occasionally suffer from inconsistent NPC awareness, but what's so great about it is that you don't feel forced to go loud when things go wrong. You can recover your stealth. Of course, that's not always the case, but still, it's salvageable if played right. The stealth mechanic hasn't changed too much, rather the NPC's behavior around it has changed the most, and that's what's made it great. Okay, maybe great's not the best, but just better. One of the most dramatic gameplay overhauls in Cyberpunk 2077 came with the complete rework of Cyberwear in Update 2.0. At launch, implants were mostly passive stat boosters. Cool looking but shallow in function. You might slap on some subdermal armor for the extra protection, install a Sandevistan for the occasional slow motion stunt, and call it a day. The systems felt like a checklist of minor enhancements rather than a pillar of player progression. Now, Cyberwear defines your build. The biggest change is the introduction of Cyberwear capacity systems. Every implant has a capacity cost, and your total capacity sets a hard limit. You can't just cram in every upgrade in the game. You have to make real choices. Want mantis blades or a double jump or a high-end Sandevistan? You can, but now you'll need to sacrifice other powerful upgrades to make room. This decision-making turns Cyberpunk into a strategic element of character creation rather than an afterthought, at least until you start to reach the late game, where you'll likely have more Cyberwear capacity, which progressively increases with street cred, or I could be wrong, but actually taking out the cyber psychos and completing main story missions. Another huge improvement is that armor is now tied directly to cyberwear, not your clothing. This means you're no longer forced into mismatched, hideous outfits just to keep your armor rating competitive. You can finally dress for style without compromising on your survivability. Fashion and function have become cleanly separated, an underrated but crucial quality of life improvement, if not the greatest in my opinion. Cyberwear now comes with meaningful trade-offs. The more chrome you pack into your body, the greater risk of cyberpsychosis, a dangerous mental breakdown that harkens back to the tabletop Cyberpunk RPG. To counter it, you'll need to invest in skill points, acquire rare mods, or limit how much higher end gear you install. The risk-reward balance forces you to think twice about going full chrome monster. The variety and impact of cyberwear have also exploded compared to launch. Mantis blades, gorilla arms, monowire, projectile launch systems, Sandavistans and Kerenzikov, optical camos. At launch, most of these items existed but were underwhelming, more novelty than necessity. Now each option feels powerful, integral, and worth building an entire character around. Cyberwear no longer just completes your loadout, it is your loadout. These shifts have made build crafting one of the most rewarding parts of the game. Whether you're a monowire assassin slicing enemies from mid-ranged, a gorilla armed street brawler punching cyber psychos through walls, or a Sandavistan sharpshooter clearing a room in seconds, your chrome directly shapes your identity in Night City. The difference between launch and now is night and day. Back then, cyberwear was shallow. Today, it defines who you are in the city. At launch, driving was a punishment. Cars handled like hovercrafts, bikes felt twitchy, police spawns made zero sense, and there was no combat. You were just a passenger with a license. Fast forward to now, and driving is actually fun. Handling has been overhauled, vehicles feel grounded, and best of all, you can now fight in vehicles. And you know what? Each of them feel different as well. They're uniquely handled in different ways. You can tell the different accelerations and braking and turning of each vehicle, how well they handle at different speeds. Update 2.0 added a mounted weapon, drive-by shootings, and proper police chases. Yes, finally you can recreate heat in the middle of Japantown while hanging out the window of a Caliburn. And the range of vehicles has vastly improved, and the way you unlock them has changed entirely. Launch directly required you to find them on the map and then pay for them. Now you buy them from the net after earning enough street cred. There are still unique unlocks and vehicles hidden behind missions and quests and out in the world. But these are rewards and secrets to find, so it makes sense from a design perspective to not have them listed in the net. The driving has just vastly improved in 5 years. From what it was at launch and just the car system as a whole, you can now change the colors of your favorite vehicles, and it's just so much better. I can't emphasize it enough because it's one of the main ways of traversing through Night City. It just feels so much better now than it did back then. One of the subtle but much needed additions to the game was the apartment system. At launch, V had one apartment. That's it. No upgrades, no customization. Now V can own multiple apartments across Night City, each with different styles, locations, and vibes. Want a corpo penthouse in the city center? Done. A beautiful loft apartment with city views? You got it. There's even an option to renovate your original apartment with neon accents and moody lighting. While these don't add gameplay mechanics per se, they do enhance immersion. Each apartment lets you shower, sleep, and even brew coffee for temporary buffs. But it's not quite full player housing, but it's a step towards making V feel like they live in the world, not just passing through it. Cyberpunk 2077's story has always been its strongest asset. Even at launch, when the game barely functioned on console, the narrative was one of the things that critics and players largely agreed on was worth the ride. In a world obsessed with chrome and hyper-stylized violence, Cyberpunk's plot managed to feel deeply personal. You play as V, a mercenary making their way through Night City's seedy underbelly. Whether you began as a corpo nomad or street kid, your story inevitably converges around a botched heist at Konpeki Plaza. It's a job that should have been a big break, instead it turns into a death sentence. A prize, a prototype biochip known as the Relic. The chip contains the digital engram of Johnny Silverhand, a legendary terrorist, rock star, and general pain in the ass, played with surprising nuance by Keanu Reeves. Johnny isn't just an AI construct, he's a full personality. After the chip's installed into V's neural network as a result of necessity, the two begin to bleed into each other, literally and metaphorically. What follows is not a save the world narrative, it's a slow, existential countdown. The biochip is killing V. Johnny's consciousness is taking over. You aren't trying to stop the apocalypse, you're just trying to survive long enough to decide what kind of ending you want. It's a narrative about identity, memory, and legacy. What does it mean to die when part of you will live on in another person? And what does it mean to live if you know you're on borrowed time? The story touches on deep philosophical themes, but never forces them on the player. If you just want to play through a stylish, revenge-fueled action tale in a neon playground, you can. But if you want to explore ideas of digital immortality, personal freedom, and the cost of rebellion, the game rewards that curiosity tenfold. Your relationships also define the narrative. Panam, Judy, Rivers, Rogue, Takimura, and others bring humanity into the story. They offer love, loyalty, or betrayal, and their side quests shape not just your perception of Night City, but your own sense of who V is. These characters don't just support the story, they are the story. And then there's Johnny. Initially brazen, arrogant, and toxic, Johnny slowly reveals layers of vulnerability, trauma, and remorse. The evolving relationship between V and Johnny is the heart of the narrative. It begins with mutual contempt and evolves into a kind of dysfunctional friendship, or even mutual respect, depending on your choices. It's rare in games to see this kind of internal character dynamic play out over dozens of hours, but Cyberpunk pulls it off. The story culminates in a series of dramatically different endings, all of which reflect your decisions throughout the game. Some are hopeful, others are tragic, and none are perfect. There is no golden path, only compromise, sacrifice, and uncertainty. That alone makes the Cyberpunk 2077's conclusion feel more honest. Cyberpunk might not have delivered on every gameplay promise at launch, but the story damn did stick the landing. 5 years on, V's journey still resonates. There's still reasons to go back and experience alternate endings, different outcomes of quests you didn't know to be possible. That's the beauty of Cyberpunk's story and narrative. It's one that'll be with me for a long, long time. If there's one thing that's never been in question since day one, it's that Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best looking games ever made. Even at its most broken, with bugs crawling across the screen and NPCs doing their best mannequin impressions, the visual presentation never stopped being jaw-dropping. Night City is a masterclass in environmental story and world building through art direction. Every district feels distinct, the neon-drenched chaos of Japtown and the corporate sterilite of the city center, the dust sprawl of the Badlands, the graffiti-laced grid of Pacifica. The city doesn't just glow, it shines with style. And most importantly, it feels alive even when you're just standing still. The lighting design is particularly stunning, whether it's rays of sunlight slicing through skyscrapers or glowing neon signs reflecting off rain, slick pavement. With ray tracing enabled and all the settings cranked up, it turns everything into a cinematic set piece. To no surprise it holds up today, in an industry where many AAA games start to show their seams within a couple of years. Cyberpunk still looks cutting-edged 5 years later, and with constant technical improvements including DLSS updates, patching to ray tracing and next-gen console optimization, the game has only become more beautiful with time. If you played Cyberpunk 2077 at launch and gave up, now's the time to return. If you've never touched it, you're walking into one of the best sci-fi RPGs of the last decade. And if you were one of the few who stuck around through the pain and bugs and memes, you watched something truly rare happen. A AAA game fell flat on its face and got back up. CD Projekt Red didn't just salvage a title, they salvaged a universe, and now with a sequel on the horizon, the story of Cyberpunk isn't one of failure anymore. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and consider subscribing, and like always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. There is truly nothing better than discussing something with you guys and getting proven wrong or seeing things in a new light. So, till next time, tune.